The anti-tanking draft lottery reform certainly took hold again, as I mentioned at the top of the show. Man was in the room where it happened, to use the Hamilton phrase. None other than Howard Beck of Bleacher Report here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Howard?
I'm doing great, Rich. How are you?
I'm good. So, okay, walk us through the whole process. You walk in, you have to give up your cell phone if you're a member of the media covering the actual pulling of the ping pong balls, right, Howard? That's what you were a part of that group last night in Chicago.
It's lockdown. It's sequester. And everybody who goes in, 12 of us who are members of the media, the 14 representatives of the teams, right? People see the representatives on the dais for the TV show. There's a corresponding rep from all those teams in the sequester room where the actual lottery ball draw happens. And all of us give up everything. It's not just your cell phone. I couldn't bring in my digital recorder even to do interviews. We could, nothing. You go in with a pad and pen, immediate withdrawal symptoms of not having my cell phone. And then they start, throw the lottery balls in the hopper, and the whole process begins. But when you're in the room, it's the real order. So the first draw, the first 4-ball combination is the top pick. So whereas on TV you're watching the countdown and all the drama that they've built into it, when you're seeing the actual draw, the first 4 balls that come up correspond to a combination. It's on a big chart. The NBA rep looks it up and says, New Orleans. And Alvin Gentry, who's in the room for the Pelicans, jumps up, yells, bleep, yeah, and starts high-fiving people. Instantly one of the greatest moments in NBA lottery history that I have witnessed. So that was fun. Alvin's the best.
So again, we're watching the video right now, radio audience, and to you, sir, is Alvin Gentry just slapping hands with various members of other organizations up there. So you were in the room watching Alvin Gentry just have that reaction?
Yes. And this is the third time I've been in the room. And normally it's, somebody might, do a little fist pump or, little prayer hands or something. Alvin, that was by far the most boisterous response I have seen. It was classic Alvin Gentry.
So what happens, do you think now, Howard? What do you think this means? Anthony Davis stays? What goes through David Griffin's mind right now?
Griff had a philosophy going into this before they even won the lottery, which is, as the new GM, as somebody who was not responsible for the screwed up situation that caused Anthony Davis to ask out in the first place, Griff's philosophy is going in saying, hey, I'm going to do everything possible to convince Anthony Davis to stay. Now, that may be an impossible task, and I think a lot of people believe that the outcome will not change. Anthony Davis will still be traded. But David Griffin has the chance to try to change his mind even before this. This potentially helps, whether it's drafting Zion to play next to Anthony Davis, and that is a linchpin, or whether it's I can flip the Zion pick for a bunch of players who can help Anthony Davis now. All possibilities have to be on the table. And a good NBA team, a smart NBA team, considers everything. And while people might already be howling, saying, how could you trade the rights to Zion? Everybody can be traded. Yes, that he could be the anchor for a post-Anthony Davis era. But if you think you could keep Anthony Davis, who's already a proven perennial all-star, we don't know if Zion Williamson will be, by the way, but we know Anthony Davis is, and he's still in his prime. If you can find a way to keep him by trading Zion Williamson's draft rights for a bunch of players that can help Anthony Davis win and convince him to stay, you do that. Go explore everything.
Well, we can all explore everything. The question is, how does that work? That would be the wildest of all, because that would also be born out of another rumor that's spreading like crazy, that Zion's unhappy about going to New Orleans. He wanted to go to New York. We did see him on screen briefly before the lottery. ESPN had a camera on the screen and on the stage during the pregame show, and he walked up, and the thing that freaked me out is there was somebody who's putting a ladder out there, or just folding up a ladder while he's walking across the stage, and I saw him tap the Atlanta Hawks podium. Everyone was saying that maybe it was for good luck or something. He wanted to go there, Howard. So what do you think? Is Zion potentially forcing his way out of New Orleans, or wants to, or is thinking about it? What do you think about that possibility?
He can't.
This is it.
He can't. I mean, listen, Anthony Davis has leverage. Anthony Davis is a superstar on effectively an expiring contract. So if you don't trade him and he walks, you're screwed. We already saw the toxic cloud that the Pelicans had over them once that trade request was made public in the first place. So Anthony Davis has leverage. Zion Williamson has no leverage. You're drafted as a rookie, and for better or worse, you have a minimum 3-year guaranteed contract set to the rookie scale, and the team holds an option for the 4th year and for the 5th year. They have his rights for 5 years. Now, if Zion Williamson conveys that he does not want to be there, and the Pelicans feel like they could make a great deal and they want to honor that and trade it, they can. But Zion Williamson can't demand it. He can't not show. There's no holdouts in the NBA as a rookie. You don't show up, you don't get paid. And so, we've seen it before. And yes, many years back, Steve Francis, drafted by the Vancouver Grizzlies, sulked about it, got himself traded, before he ever played there. That was a long time ago in a different era of the NBA. I don't think Zion Williamson can force his way somewhere unless the Pelicans decide that that's what's in their best interest.
So what's the time frame on all this? Because, you'd have to think that if David Griffin, again, the general manager of the Pelicans, determines that Anthony Davis is a lost cause, they're going to have to get him out without people knowing about it, one would think, to try and keep the leverage going. Or if he decides Anthony stays and the best way to build around something right now is to actually call somebody up for Zion, he's got to do this all sort of under the radar. How does this all time frame out, do you think, Howard?
Well, it's the NBA. Almost nothing's under the radar anymore. I mean, very few trades actually happen without something leaking out about the talks. And in this case, there are no secrets anyway, because Anthony Davis's agent, Rich Paul, made the trade demand public, months ago. And there's been no indication that they're moving off of that stance. So whatever leverage you wanted to have is gone anyway. Everybody knows what the score is here, that Anthony Davis wants out and that he's on effectively a 1-year deal. And so any team trading for him has to have some belief that they can re-sign him. Now, we've seen the Thunder trade for Paul George when everybody said Paul George wanted to be in L.A., and they convinced him to stay. We saw the Raptors last year trade for Kawhi Leonard. That's paying off pretty well right now, even though they knew that he supposedly wanted to go to L.A., and they're still hoping that they can re-sign him. Once David Griffin decides, assuming that this happens, that Anthony Davis does have to be moved, that he's not going to change his mind, then Griff can start having those conversations with people around the league, and any team that's interested. And there will be, by the way, more teams than just Boston and the Lakers. It's not going to be just those two teams that were talked about all this time. There will be other teams, I guarantee it, who will try to make a move, even if there's an indication, well, Anthony Davis wouldn't resign in, say, Denver, or Anthony Davis says he wouldn't resign in, wherever, fill in the blank. All those teams will, I believe, make an inquiry. They'll make an attempt, because we've seen this. You trade for Paul George, you take your chances, he might resign. And that is, I think, the lesson for the bold teams is you take your chances and you bet on yourself, you bet on your organization, you be confident about it. And I think that the competition between, 4, 5, 6, however many teams get into it, will give Griffin enough leverage to get the best deal.
Howard Beck of Bleacher Report. A few more minutes with Howard here on the Rich Eisen Show. And when you were in that draft lottery room, sitting there representing the Knicks, was Allen Houston. So I guess with Patrick on the outside and Allen on the inside, it was like the 1997-98 playoffs once again, Howard, with a big fat loss for the Knicks, sadly and unfortunately. What do they do now? Obviously, the number 3 overall selection is not too shabby, but what does this mean for July 1st and all the plans with Porzingis, which I guess is one of the rare trades that went down without anybody kind of hearing about it? What do you think?
I think that the Knicks are in a much worse spot than they hoped to be. I think that's clear. Now, their plans for the last several months have been twofold. One was they created, 2 max slots to try to sign 2 superstars this summer. And the other one was, of course, tanking like crazy to try to get Zion Williamson. That part didn't work out. The 3 pick is fine, but this is considered basically a one-man draft. There are people out there who are very high on Ja Morant. There are others who are not, so maybe it's a 2-man draft. I have not heard anybody suggest it's a 3-man draft, and it doesn't mean that R.J. Barrett or other guys couldn't work out. We've seen this many, many times, obviously. Giannis was the 15th pick. Kawhi was the 15th pick. Rudy Gobert, the 27th pick. There's somebody out there that will fall lower and that people slept on and turns out to be great. But are the Knicks now guaranteed to get a change maker at 3? No. Is that pick and for trade purposes a great chip to trade for Anthony Davis as the number 1 pick would have been? Of course it's not. So you can't really spin this. That was a loss for the Knicks. And that said, no one will care probably if they sign Kevin Durant and another star on July 1st. And that remains, their primary and most important path. They've put a lot of chips into that particular pot. It's all about trying to get superstars to come and sign with all the cap room they've got. If they can do that, then they're in good shape. If they can't, they've got some young players already who haven't really done much, and they'll have the 3rd pick and whoever that becomes, and it'll be a long haul.
And then, hey, the Lakers, they lucked out, you could say. I mean, they've got the 4th overall selection now, when everybody thought it would be way down the list. What do you think, as a guy who obviously covers the league nationally and used to cover the Lakers specifically, the Vogel and Kidd hiring, and now going into the summer with the 4th overall selection in their back pocket, and LeBron seeking a help-wanted sign out front for him to try and win another title? What do you think the Lakers' standing is now that we're through the draft lottery?
Well, jumping from 11th to 4th with the lottery was huge for them. Rob Pelinka, he was in the room, and he, immediately, shook hands. His celebration was a little more muted than Alvin Gentry's. Shook hands with the 2 people to his left and right, and put his hands together in kind of a praying motion, and thankful to have moved up. Having the 4th pick is great. I don't think it's in the Lakers' interest necessarily to use that pick. You've got LeBron James. You need to win now. Rookies don't usually help you win or contend in this league. It's very, very rare, and certainly the 4th pick is not going to help. They've already got young players in Lonzo and Brandon Ingram. They were already too young to be good enough this past season. Now those guys got another year of experience under their belts, and the Lakers will try once again, I'm sure, to chase Anthony Davis. Is the 4th overall pick plus the stuff they've got, the players that they've got that the Pelicans already rejected, will it be enough? I don't know. I mean, David Griffin's the GM in New Orleans now instead of Dell Demps. Does that change the evaluation from the New Orleans side of it? Will they re-engage with the Lakers? The Lakers need immediate help, whether that's signing another max player this summer. They do have room for 1 superstar. Whether it's finding somebody to come play with LeBron, whether it's flipping some of their young guys for, if it's not Anthony Davis, then maybe somebody else becomes available. Maybe it's Bradley Beal. Maybe it's somebody else, that we haven't, even thought of yet. They need immediate help. If they're not going to waste what's left of LeBron's career and his contract there, the Lakers need immediate, veteran, proven help, and that's the task for them this summer.
So based on what you were saying at the outset of our conversation, Alvin Gentry found out first that he was first, and then the Grizzlies found out second that they were second, meaning the Knicks, Cavs, and Suns started sweating bullets on the spot. And then Allen Houston and the Knicks wiped their brow. Hey, at least they got 3. And that's when Rob Pelinka found out that the last 4th spot actually was theirs. And that's the way that it all ended in the room last night.
Yeah, they go in order. So, yes, you knew the Pelicans were slotted first, and then the Grizzlies found out they were slotted second. Then the Knicks find out they're slotted third. And then the Grizzlies' numbers came up again. You're signed, a certain number of combinations, and so the Grizzlies actually came up again with the 4th draw. But that happens sometimes. And so what they do is they say to the Grizzlies, okay, we'll draw again. They throw the balls back in the machine. They bounce around. They pull it all out again, and then the Lakers combination came up, and that's when Rob Pelinka knew, okay, we've got the 4th pick. There was there was one, hitch there for a minute.
So then the last thing for you here, Howard. The Lakers had a 9.4% chance of getting a top 4 pick. Memphis a 26.3% of getting a top 4 pick, and they went ahead and had it and got hit twice with those odds. Then you have Phoenix and Cleveland with a 52% of a top 4 pick, neither of them getting one. So overall, what does the NBA think about this? Yes, they got a great show on ESPN last night, and everybody tweeting about it and buzzing about this. And yes, maybe teams will think twice about tanking next year. But teams that need the help the most aren't getting it. So the teams that are terrible don't have the leg up to actually get better, which is the purpose of a draft, Howard. Where does the NBA stand on all this, do you think, today?
It's the right question, and this is what the NBA has been grappling with for years, ever since they created the lottery in the first place. If you go with a straight reverse order draft with no lottery, then, of course, you completely incentivize teams to tank to get to the top pick. So you create a lottery, then you tweak the lottery odds, and then years later you tweak them again. And the whole thing with the system is trying to find that balance of still trying to help the teams that need the help the most, that lost the most games the prior season, without incentivizing teams to actually lose on purpose. And in this era of analytics where everybody can figure out everything down to the last decimal, people started to exploit it in a way that was, beyond what we'd ever seen, right? Tanking has always existed. It just became, I think, a little more pronounced in the last 5 or so years, and it freaked the league out. And they don't like – here's the thing that they hate the most. I mean, there's two aspects. They don't like a team trying to game the system. That's already bad. A team just structuring themselves to lose on purpose is not good. But the part that I think really bothers Adam Silver is when fans are behind it. When Philly fans were actually cheering for the Sixers to lose year after year, and you saw it this year again. Knicks fans. I've never seen Knicks fans so completely complacent about a 17-win season. And the Knicks have had a lot of bad seasons. This is the first time that since I've been in New York for 15 years that I can remember Knicks fans basically say, it's fine. It's fine. We're getting Zion. And that is what the NBA rejiggering the lottery odds is intended to combat. So now you get burned by it, not just the Knicks, but the Suns and the Cavs too. You get burned by it. And now fans will be presumably less likely to be cheering for their teams to lose next season, knowing it could backfire. And if the fans aren't behind you, then it's harder for the GMs to try this in the first place or to sell it, because then no one has faith that it's going to work out. And that's the uncertainty that you need. And so if this lottery did anything, hopefully it just has, in fact, discouraged tanking and fans from rooting for that strategy. And I think that's a good outcome overall for the league. And there were people in the room last night who that was the first thing they said to me. These were, team reps who were like, you know what? This is good for the league. It's good that it happened this way. And I would still say this, by the way. Yeah, the Suns and Cavs and Knicks, who were the bottom 3 teams in record, none of them got the top pick. They all slid. But the teams that got to the top, the Pelicans and Grizzlies, are teams that need help. I mean, I know the Pelicans have Anthony Davis, but they didn't make the playoffs. They do have to trade him. They do need help anyway. The Grizzlies certainly need help. Teams are just going to have to build differently and not count on the idea of a top 3 pick.
Howard, you're the man. Thanks for the time. We'll chat soon before the finals for sure.
Always a pleasure, Rich. Thanks for having me.
You got it. That's Howard Beck, Bleacher Report. Howard Beck.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download The Rich Eisen Show app.